Coming home early. Great work, George. Just need to collect the listening devices and take down the cameras. You're not needed for that, so go ahead and send the report to the client and then you can head out. The boss will be happy to save on your overtime, Alex said, smiling. He knew I was eager to return home to see my wife. I promptly finished the report, sent it off, and used the hotel's internet to look for a flight back. No flights from Tampa tonight, but if I drove to Orlando, I could catch a late flight and be home by noon. I was thrilled to be finishing the job early and going home. I even bought flowers to surprise my wife. This new job was good financially but tough on our personal life. Now that my training was complete, my trips would reduce to just a few days each month. We weren't used to being apart this much, and I could tell it was straining our relationship. I had learned a lot about surveillance, but at what cost? Cindy had been tense, her patience shorter than usual. Our intimacy had also decreased significantly. Our meeting wasn't a typical love story. We moved in different social circles in high school, but kept running into each other after my Navy days. Eventually, I asked her out, and we clicked. Despite her striking looks, she shared that she had waited for the right person. Before meeting her, I had my share of relationships, especially during my unattached military days. She wanted to wait until marriage for certain intimacies. The wait was challenging, but my love for her made it worthwhile. Our honeymoon was a time for us to grow closer. I focused on making her comfortable and happy. We explored our new relationship with excitement and affection. After returning from our honeymoon, our bond had strengthened. We were very much in love and our connection deepened over the years. We even considered starting a family, but delayed due to my job loss and her new boss at work. Her boss was a former athlete, quite influential, and the only manager of his background in the company. Luckily, I soon found a job at Advanced Surveillance Services, and today marked the end of my training period. I couldn't wait to surprise her by arriving home early, perhaps rekindling some of our early romance. When I got home, the first thing I noticed was an unfamiliar car parked across from our driveway. It set off alarms in my head, making me think of cliché stories where unexpected things happen when someone comes home early. A chill ran down my spine. To keep my arrival a surprise, I avoided the garage and entered through the front door. As I did, a sound from upstairs caught my attention, igniting a mix of heartbreak and anger in me. It sounded like Cindy, and I feared the worst. Tiptoeing upstairs, phone in hand, I was ready to confront whatever was happening. I had jumped to conclusions, suspecting it might be her boss, given his reputation and my own insecurities fueled by stories I'd read. But what I saw in the bedroom caught me completely off guard. Cindy was alone, deep in her own world of pleasure, using a vibrator. The intensity of her enjoyment was evident in her expressions and sounds. She was lost in a fantasy, speaking as if I were there with her, expressing desires of intimacy and starting a family together. My emotions quickly shifted from anger to surprise, and then to arousal. This scene, so personal and intense, was a stark contrast to what I had imagined. I continued to take pictures, now seeing them as a memory of this unexpected and intimate moment. Clearing my throat, I made my presence known. Cindy's eyes flew open, and she looked at me, her expression wild with a mix of surprise and desire. "You're home early," Cindy remarked, her voice filled with surprise as she set aside the personal item she'd been using. Her tone shifted to a playful demand. "Hurry up and come here." Eagerly, I shed my clothes in a rush, almost tripping in my haste, and joined her on the bed. She welcomed me with open arms, her anticipation clear. We embraced passionately, our connection deep and fervent. It was a moment of intense closeness, reflecting our longing for each other. Our reunion was brief but fiery, a testament to our strong bond and desire. Afterwards, I managed to fully undress, catching my breath. Cindy, glowing with the aftermath of our intense moment, shared a satisfied smile with me. She then excused herself to the bathroom, playfully covering herself as she went. A few moments later, I heard the familiar sounds of the bathroom routine. When she returned, she stood in the doorway, striking a pose that highlighted her natural beauty. At 5'6", her figure was a perfect blend of grace and strength, a testament to her love for dance. The sight of her, looking radiant and content, reignited a spark within me. It had indeed been a long week, but moments like these made everything worthwhile. Cindy suddenly stopped posing and playfully jumped into my arms, causing us both to fall back onto the bed, her on top of me. She greeted me with an enthusiastic kiss. Meanwhile, the vibrator, still buzzing on the side, caught her attention, and she reached over to turn it off. She seemed a bit unfamiliar with it but managed to switch it off and placed it on the nightstand, looking at me with a warm, affectionate gaze. "I'm so happy you're back early. I really needed this," she expressed with genuine excitement. Curious, I asked about the sleek silver device she had just put aside. She shared a mischievous smile before explaining. "Last Thursday, my coworkers wanted to go out for drinks," she began, and I felt a twinge of unease. Nothing good ever seemed to come from those kinds of nights out, or at least that's what the stories always suggested. But instead of going out, I didn't want to be around a bunch of tipsy guys, considering I was feeling a bit upset about you being away. So, I invited the girls over for a wine night at our place. It turned into a bit of a girls' night in, she explained. We were chatting, and I mentioned how hard it was with you traveling and the stress at work. That's when Sharon suggested getting something to take the edge off. The girls helped me choose one online, and I ordered it with next-day delivery. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow, so I thought I'd try it out. But then you came home and gave me something much better. Today has been amazing. She finished, her eyes sparkling. Oh, and that car across the street. That's Lexi's. She had a bit too much to drink on Thursday and left it there. She and her husband should be picking it up later today. Relieved and feeling closer than ever, I gave her a tender kiss, and we found ourselves ready for another round of intimacy. This time it was slower and gentler, a contrast to our earlier urgency. I took care to be tender and affectionate, a balm to the recent distance in our relationship. We both reached a gentle, satisfying climax nearly in sync. Afterward, as we lay there, Cindy playfully toyed with the lingering warmth of our closeness, a content smile on her face. It felt like a turning point, a rekindling of our connection. Cindy looked at me with a mix of hope and apprehension. "Would you mind having lunch with me on Monday, so I don't have to be alone with him?" she asked. I managed to keep my frustration with this guy under control and offered her a reassuring smile. "Of course, I'd love to have lunch with you. Has he been the reason for your stress lately?" I inquired gently. "Yeah, for the past few months he's been making me uncomfortable. Unwanted compliments, offering to take me out. It's been really creepy. I hoped it would stop, but it hasn't, so I'm filing a complaint. I didn't want to be that person who complains, but I also don't want to feel uneasy at work. I'm sorry for bringing that stress home," she explained, her expression clouded with worry. "You're doing the right thing," I reassured her. "But why didn't you tell me sooner? I wanted to handle it myself, plus you had your own job stresses." "I wasn't sure if he was just being friendly in his own way," she explained. "And I didn't want you to overreact, at least not until he started bothering me during lunch. Now, I wouldn't mind if you stepped in." I couldn't help but smile, remembering how I had to defend her once at a bar. She knew about my Navy background, but that was a situation where I had to really show it. "I don't think I'll need my buddies for this one. Speaking of them, would it be okay if they come over for the Daytona 500? I asked, trying to lighten the mood. She rolled her eyes playfully. "Sure, and invite Bill and April, too. I'll call Bob and Sharon. It'll be nice to have some company." I liked the sound of that. Our gatherings with friends were always enjoyable, a mix of different personalities and backgrounds. After our conversation, I took a shower and then we both enjoyed a peaceful nap. Later, we went out for a nice dinner, relishing our time together. We ended the night content and relaxed, grateful for our renewed closeness. The next day, Sunday, Cindy and I spent the day taking care of household chores, playfully teasing each other until bedtime. I sent out electronic invitations for the upcoming Daytona party, and then we settled in for a cozy night's sleep. On Monday, I joined Cindy for lunch at a sandwich shop near her office. Predictably, her problematic boss, Devin, showed up shortly after her, looking somewhat surprised to see me there. Despite his imposing physique, a former NFL player towering over my 6 feet, lean frame, I didn't let it intimidate me. Without any preamble, Devin began talking to Cindy about a mandatory managers conference in Chicago, completely ignoring my presence. Cindy firmly declined, stating she had plans with me. Devin, persisting, implied her career might suffer if she didn't attend. Trying to defuse the situation, I suggested to Cindy that we discuss it over lunch, giving her a reassuring wink to signal I had a plan. As Devin smugly warned Cindy not to be late returning from lunch, I excused myself, following him out with a calm exterior, but seething inside. Catching up to Devin, I confronted him with a stern warning about leaving Cindy alone. I emphasized my military background and my network of capable friends to drive the point home, ensuring he understood the seriousness of my warning. My tone was low and threatening, enough to make sure he got the message without escalating the situation further. Returning to Cindy, I found her upset but relieved. We finished our lunch, discussing how to handle the situation going forward, determined to protect her well-being and our relationship. Devin carefully nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation, especially with the knife still at his throat. In a swift move, I took his wallet and watch, and then delivered a strong hit to his solar plexus to wind him. Picking up a piece of broken pallet wood, I used it to reinforce my message, leaving him on the ground in discomfort. I warned him that the story to tell was a mugging by unknown assailants, making it clear that any involvement of the police with my family would lead to dire consequences for him. Satisfied with his understanding, I emptied the cash from his wallet, planning to dispose of it later to avoid any traceable evidence. "Thanks for lunch," I said with a hint of irony as I walked away. Epilogue. Devin certainly had a rough week, experiencing a mugging and losing his job. I was anxious for a while about any potential police investigation, but nothing came of it, indicating he took my warning seriously. On a happier note, Cindy and I are expecting our second child. She didn't conceive immediately when I returned, but it happened a month later. Her energy and enthusiasm, especially now during her pregnancy, are remarkable, and sometimes I'm thankful she has other means to keep herself content on the more demanding days. My job is going well, and so is hers. Our life together is fulfilling. Sure, we have our disagreements like any couple, but we always find our way back to each other, stronger than ever. My comment: a wife who actually behaves like a married woman and reacts to unwelcome attention in the way that women do in real life. Who'd have thought it? Story 2. After a long and grueling day at work, I returned home covered in grime. One of our team was out sick, and someone had to crawl under a house to run wiring. As the boss and the slimmest guy on the team, I took up the task. I didn't mind. It's important to show the team that I'm willing to take on the tough jobs. I'm proud of my role as a master electrician, leading a hardworking team of 3 journeymen. Our business is thriving in Detroit, a city I adore despite its challenges. The ongoing revitalization keeps us busy and helps lift the city back up. I was definitely feeling my age, 39, when I got home, but still managed to smile. I was looking forward to a relaxing massage from my wife, a treat I cherished. I've always felt fortunate in my marriage. Despite considering myself quite ordinary, my wife seems to genuinely love me. I'm not particularly tall or muscular, and my hair has a mind of its own, but I'm content. My wife Elizabeth is stunningly beautiful. She's of average height, with striking features and a fit physique. Her heart-shaped face and expressive lips add to her charm. I feel blessed every day that she chose to marry me. We met 5 years ago in a community college business administration class. The course was frustrating at times, as real-world experience often contradicted the textbook theories. Elizabeth, who wore a ring back then, seemed out of reach. She had successfully run a catering business in Chicago and was contemplating a new venture. I learned she was no longer interested in catering, and we gradually got to know each other better. In our study group, which mostly consisted of younger students, Elizabeth and I were the oldest. Once, when the others didn't show up, we ended up grabbing pizza and talking about life outside school. That's when I discovered her rings were just a deterrent for unwanted attention. She had never been married, having focused on her business. As for me, I had a long-term relationship that ended when my partner left to travel and explore different lifestyles. We still keep in touch casually through social media. Our connection grew from those simple beginnings, leading us to where we are today, happily married and facing life's adventures together. From that night forward, Liz and I became a couple. Our relationship was built more on a deep friendship and connection than just physical attraction. While intimacy was a part of our relationship, it was not the sole focus. We shared many meaningful moments together, but our connection was about more than just physicality. After finishing our class, Liz decided to start a floral boutique using the funds from her previous business. She had experience in catering, which helped her establish the new business in Detroit. She focused on creating floral arrangements for weddings and funerals, gradually building a network in the area. Returning home one evening, I was hoping Liz could help with a persistent knot in my back after a particularly challenging day at work. I found her in the kitchen, looking elegant in a bathrobe with her hair styled and makeup done. She had a contemplative look as she held a glass of wine. When she saw me, she stood up, revealing an outfit that accentuated her beauty. She wore thigh-high stockings, a corset, and a choker necklace, giving her an alluring appearance. Her gaze held a wild, intense expression as she turned and leaned over the table, inviting me to join her in a moment of passion. As I entered the house, my backache was quickly forgotten in the face of Liz's captivating presence. She had an air of allure and confidence about her, which made the atmosphere between us charged with excitement. I approached her, feeling a rush of anticipation. We shared an intense moment of closeness, feeling the heat and passion between us. It was a raw and fervent encounter, reflecting the depth of our connection. Liz, always full of surprises, proceeded to demonstrate her affection in a very intimate and personal way. She was incredibly skilled, leaving me breathless with the intensity of the experience. It was a moment of pure ecstasy, unlike anything I had felt before. Afterwards, she took a moment to refresh herself with a glass of water and then returned to me, her kiss fierce and full of emotion. She whispered suggestively, hinting at continuing our intimate moments, a testament to the passionate and unrestrained nature of our relationship. About 30 minutes later, we shared another intimate moment, this time exploring a new level of closeness. It was a first for us, and the intensity of the experience was evident. Liz was guiding me, encouraging me to deepen our connection. It was a passionate and intense experience, culminating in a moment of complete release for both of us. Afterwards, we embraced each other tightly. I expressed my deep love for her, feeling a profound emotional bond between us. I noticed tears in her eyes as she reciprocated my feelings, her words filled with sincerity and emotion. Suddenly, she excused herself to the bathroom, leaving me with a sense of unease. When she returned, her face was set with a look of determination. She indicated we needed to have a serious conversation, which made my heart sink with apprehension. She began to confess that she hadn't been entirely honest about her past. She assured me of her devotion since the beginning of our relationship, but admitted to hiding aspects of her history due to embarrassment and shame. She feared my reaction, concerned that I might not accept her if I knew the whole truth. I was taken aback, unsure of what to expect. I encouraged her to share, assuring her of my unconditional love and willingness to understand and work through whatever she needed to reveal. I braced myself for her story, committed to facing whatever it was, together. When I first told you about my past, I wasn't completely honest, Liz began, a hint of apprehension in her voice. I didn't start in catering. It was actually an escort service. I was in a tough financial spot and started going on dates for money. It escalated to more intimate encounters with clients. When the person running the service got into legal trouble, I took over the client list and kept the business going. Then the recession eased and business improved. At 28, I wanted to change my life, so I sold the client list to some of my colleagues and started my floral shop with that money. A lot of it, I kept in an offshore account. I need to apologize for not being truthful earlier. I just wanted to be the kind of wife you thought I was, she finished. I was initially relieved that her revelation wasn't about leaving me or being unfaithful. But as her story sunk in, I was hit with a wave of shock and confusion. My wife, whom I knew as loving and devoted, had a past so starkly different from what I had imagined. I struggled to reconcile this new information with the person I knew and loved. The fact that she had withheld such a significant part of her life from me was difficult to process. Compelled to understand more, I asked her, "Why tell me now?" My voice was hesitant, reflecting the turmoil of thoughts and emotions swirling inside me. "Because something from my past has resurfaced," Liz said with a hint of bitterness. "One of my former clients, Xavier Stone, got into trouble. His father owned a big steel company, and Xavier was ousted from the business. He's not well received in Detroit anymore. His old assistant, Jacob, now works for a politician, Fred Thompson. Jacob recognized me when he visited my shop a few months ago. He inquired if I was still in the escort business, which I denied. But he went back to his boss with this information. This morning, he returned, asking me to gather some women for a fundraising event and insisting that I accompany him as his date. I felt a surge of anger at the thought of someone treating Liz like this. "What did you say to him this morning?" I asked. "I told him off," she replied with visible anger. I made it clear that I wanted nothing to do with him. It wasn't new for Liz to get unwanted attention. Her beauty and presence often attracted it. But she was always firm in setting boundaries, regardless of the situation. Seeing her struggle with tears, I knew this was difficult for her. I sat beside her, trying to make sense of everything. I offered her a comforting embrace, and she ran into my arms. We lay down, and she soon cried herself to sleep. Watching her sleep, my love for her remained unwavering, but I knew we needed to address this situation. I covered her gently and kissed her forehead before heading downstairs to think things over. I made coffee and started jotting down my thoughts. There were two main issues, dealing with her past and the deceit. While I understood why she might not have revealed her past during our early dating days, and admittedly, it would never be easy to confess such a history, it was still a lot to process. I sat down with a notepad, trying to untangle my thoughts. There were two main issues to address. The first was how to come to terms with Liz's concealment of her past. I could understand why she might not have brought it up during our initial dating period. Revealing a past in the escort business is not an easy topic to broach, and on some level, I got why she hadn't told me. But this also made me question our level of trust. I had believed we could share anything with each other, but now I was facing the reality that she might withhold information if it was deeply embarrassing for her. This made me ponder whether she would be completely honest with me in other aspects of our relationship, like fidelity. While the physical aspect of her past didn't overly concern me, we both weren't virgins when we married. It was the emotional exclusions that troubled me. Our intimate life had been quite standard, but now I was aware that she was capable of more. This was something we needed to discuss openly. The second issue was our approach to dealing with Thompson's proposition. I actually found a bit of dark humor in the situation. He had definitely targeted the wrong person's wife. At the heart of it, Liz was my wife, whom I loved deeply and believed to be faithful since we met. I was determined not to leave her over this, provided our forthcoming conversations were honest and open. As I contemplated what to say and how to say it, scribbling absent-mindedly on the paper, I felt Liz's arms around me, her face against my hair. She then sat opposite me, her expression one of deep concern and beauty. "Well, I'm not running away, so that should mean something," I said, trying to offer a small, reassuring smile. But she didn't smile back. I could see she was tormented by the revelation and its impact on us. "Okay, let's start with this. I knew you weren't a virgin when we got married. And honestly, the number of people you've been with isn't a big issue for me. We both married in our early 30s, so it's understandable we both had passed," I began, trying to ease into the conversation. "What really bothers me, though, are two main things, and the rest is just minor stuff. The first is about not knowing your past. I get why you might not lead with that when we first met, but after nearly a decade of marriage, I thought there'd be enough trust between us for you to share. I'm not blaming you for your past, it's more about the sharing part that concerns me." I noticed a slight relief in her eyes as I spoke. However, I have to admit, this revelation has shaken my confidence in our trust a bit. It's not that there's any specific reason for it, but now I'm left wondering if there are other things you might not be honest about, especially if you find them embarrassing. I continued, sharing my feelings openly. Suddenly, she interjected, "The car." Confused, I asked, "What about it?" A couple of years ago, I told you that someone hit my car in the parking lot. That wasn't true. It was actually me. I was distracted by my makeup in the mirror, and I accidentally accelerated into another car. I hid the accident report and just paid the fine, hoping you'd never find out," she confessed hurriedly. I couldn't help but let out a chuckle at her confession about the car. Something about that story had always seemed off to me, perhaps the way the car was damaged. Reflecting on it, I actually felt a sense of relief. That incident had been the only time I suspected any deceit from her, and my intuition had been right. Apart from that, I had always been quite sure of her honesty, at least until this morning when my certainty was shaken. Addressing a more sensitive topic, I said, "My other major concern is about our intimate life. What we shared earlier was incredibly passionate, easily one of my top experiences. Knowing now that you're capable of such intensity, I wonder why our intimacy is usually more restrained. I sometimes feel like I might not be enough for you." Her expression shifted to a thoughtful frown, carefully choosing her words. "Kevin, there's something you should know. Out of all the men I've been with, you're the only one who's made me actually look forward to being intimate. Yes, I've had physical pleasure with others, but the excitement, the anticipation, that's only ever been with you. I realize now I might have been selfish. When you're close to me, when I can feel your presence and see the love in your eyes, it's incredibly arousing. I was also afraid that if I introduced more adventurous elements into our relationship, it might lead you to discover my past. I'm truly sorry if you felt neglected. Moving forward, I promise you, I'm open to exploring anything," she replied with heartfelt sincerity. "I'm not looking for anything extreme," I reassured her. "I was just hoping we could explore a bit more together, perhaps try different forms of intimacy, maybe even some light adventurous play. I just want to experience more with you." She nodded eagerly in agreement, showing her willingness to engage in new experiences together. In a soft voice, filled with vulnerability, she asked, "Before we even think of parting ways, can we consider counseling?" "Listen, I'm not contemplating a breakup," I reassured her. "I love you, and as long as you've been committed to me since we've been together, I don't want this revelation to tear us apart." She then came around the table and sat in my lap, seeking comfort in my embrace. I held her close, feeling the strength of our bond. Her next concern was about Jacob and Thompson. I couldn't help but smile, already formulating a plan. "We'll get Greg involved," I suggested confidently. Her smile appeared, but she looked a bit worried. "That means he'll find out about my past," she said with a note of uncertainty. I reassured her with a smile. "I'm pretty sure he might already know. And trust me, there's no way he could ever be disappointed in his favorite aunt." My words were intended to comfort her, reminding her of the strong support system we had. My nephew Greg was a prodigy with computers, far surpassing my own basic skills of internet browsing and email usage. I had enrolled in some courses to improve my computer literacy, happy to have mastered QuickBooks and online material ordering. But Greg was in a league of his own. He often referred to himself as a white-hat hacker, earning a substantial income by helping businesses test their security systems. He also had some government contracts, though he was always tight-lipped about those details. Greg's sexual orientation had become a topic in our family around the time Liz and I got married and he turned 18. The revelation of his being gay caused a divide in our family, with some relatives even threatening to boycott the family reunion. I took a stand for him, engaging in heated debates about gay rights, trying to support him. Liz was the one who really reached out to Greg during this time, becoming someone he could confide in. The family tensions simmered down and then briefly flared up again when Greg brought home a girlfriend from college, revealing he was bisexual. Liz and I were among the first to fully accept him for who he was, understanding that his life choices were his own. So, Greg became a nephew who would do anything for his Aunt Liz, equipped with a unique skill set. We decided to visit him at his apartment. He was casually eating cereal at 9 p.m., looking like he had just woken up. After some initial banter about why we were there, Liz got straight to the point. "Greg, before I met your uncle, I ran an escort service. Now a guy and a senator are trying to blackmail me into returning to that life. If we give you their names, could you help us get information to deter them?" she asked. I observed Greg's reaction closely. His lack of surprise hinted that he might have already known about Liz's past. His jaw tightened, and his eyes narrowed with concern. It was clear he cared deeply for his Aunt Liz. "Are you two okay?" he asked me, his concern evident. "Yeah, these past few hours have been quite something, but I think we're actually doing well. It feels better now that everything is out in the open," I said to Greg, trying to put a positive spin on the situation. Greg seemed to visibly relax upon hearing this. "All right, I'll need the names, and I'll see what I can do. This kind of work isn't really my main focus, but I know people who are into this sort of investigative work. I'll pass this on to them and see if they can help. Just a heads up, though, this kind of investigation can reveal more than you might expect. What starts as a search for a few secrets can sometimes uncover a whole lot more. I prefer sticking to corporate security for this reason. Political matters can get pretty complicated," he cautioned us. In just 2 days, Greg's warning proved to be accurate. The senator was arrested on several serious charges, including inappropriate conduct and obstruction of justice. It all stemmed from an incident at a party he hosted a year ago. The fallout was extensive, dragging in professionals from various fields into the scandal. Amidst his own legal and personal turmoil, the senator had no bandwidth left to concern himself with Liz and her past. Jacob, having cooperated early in the investigation, avoided the most serious repercussions. After some time, I confronted Jacob in an alley outside a club, expressing my feelings in a less than gentle manner. When Liz found out, she was surprisingly supportive, showing her affection in her own unique way. Eventually, Liz and I found our peace. We never had children, but we were always the fun aunt and uncle. I sold my business, and Liz eventually did the same with her flower shop. We embraced a life of travel, exploring the world together in our later years. Now in our 70s, we've naturally slowed down in many aspects of life, but we still find ways to show our love for each other. Life has been good to us, full of adventures and love. My comment: was this a good ending, or you think she is not a keeper? Comment down below, sub and bell, and there is a long series coming later.